Hi, welcome to the Ruckus Feature Explainer series. I'm Terry Henry. This time around, we're going to talk about Ruckus Unleashed, and specifically, we're going to talk about client troubleshooting within the newer versions of Ruckus Unleashed. So I'm running 200.8 for this example, but it certainly also works on 200.7. So how we start here is I'm going to expand out clients. So currently I have 2 clients connected, and I'll expand this section out. And so what we see here is we see a Mac, Mac OS X, and we see a Galaxy S9 running Android. They're both authorized. They both have excellent signal, etc. Auth method is open, so we can have a look at those clients, what encryption they're using, etc. But let's say we're having trouble with, we'll try the Android client here. So what we're going to need in order to run troubleshooting is we're going to need a MAC address. So I'm just going to grab this MAC before I go to the next screen. So I'll just do a copy there. And then I'm going to choose troubleshooting. So I've highlighted that device. I'm going to choose troubleshooting. It's asking me for the client MAC address, right? So we'll paste in the MAC that I just copied, right? And the next thing, it says, please connect your client manually once troubleshooting is started, or if the client's already connected already, then it will be disconnected and reconnected by Unleashed, right? So my client's already connected. If you knew the MAC address of a disconnected client, you could just manually type it in there and then connect the client. But in my case, I'm just going to start the troubleshooting, and then it is going to de-auth my client. So it's going to kick my client off, and then my client will reconnect to the network. So we'll just take a second here and we'll see that happen. And so what's happened here, we see, so these are the access points that are hearing my client's probes, right? So I have 3 different APs in this network. And each one of those has both the 2.4 and the 5 gigahertz radio on. We can see the signal to noise ratio, the latency, the connection failures, airtime utilization for those APs. So we can see, all 3 APs are seeing this client, and both radios on each AP is seeing this client. So moving on, the first thing that happened was this client was connected to this this AP on this SSID on the 2.4 gigahertz radio, right? So I was connected, and then the AP kicked me off. So basically, there was a client disconnect by admin. It got disassociated and then de-authenticated, right? So we can see some de-authentication frames go out. So that's when the system, for troubleshooting purposes, kicked my client off, and then the client reconnected. So here we see the client reconnect back to the same SSID on the same radio, and we can see a step-by-step of what happened with this client, right? So we see the authentication request, the response, authentication request, and then we see association, then we see the 4-way handshake, right? So authentication, association, 4-way handshake. So there's actually no problem. This client connected properly, so there was no issue to be found there. But if there was an issue, we would have highlighted that. So if it was failing in one of the frames of the 4-way handshake, it was failing in DHCP, for example, those would all show up, and it would show you exactly where that failure happened, right? So we could see the client device to the access point, to Unleashed controller, to the DHCP server, to the AAA server if you're running AAA, and then to captive portal again if you're running captive portal. So it will show you exactly where that fails. Now in this case, this is just a WPA2 pre-shared key, and so it's not using AAA or captive portal, so you're not going to see those pieces in here. But if there was a breakdown in that communication or in the onboarding of that client, it would show you exactly where that happened. So a wonderful tool for that. The other thing you can do is you can, once I stop the troubleshooting here, we can export that, right? So if I want to save that flow for later to show somebody or show TAC, whatever the case, I can do an export, which just exported a file onto my local machine here. And then from that point, if you wanted to see that that later, right? We could do an import. So it's going to import troubleshooting. So you could either drag a file or click to upload a file. So I'm going to upload a file from previous and import that. And here, this was a different client, and in this case, you see, the dissociation and authorization authentication, four-way handshake was fine, DHCP request was fine, and then there was a DHCP NAC, which actually was fine in this case, and then it ACKed a different IP address. DHCP discover was fine, DHCP offer was okay, and then a request and an ACK. So this client onboarded correctly, and we see the full onboarding of this client happen correctly. But again, at anywhere in this process failed, it would have been very clear where the issue is, right? So instead of spending, days trying to troubleshoot, or well, maybe not days, but extended periods of time troubleshooting something that could be a DHCP problem, right? Maybe your DHCP server is out of addresses, or maybe you have an authentication problem. Whatever that case is, you can quickly determine what that problem is and try to narrow it down. And again, I mean, you're going to see signal noise ratio and connection failure percent. So you're going to see information up here about the APs. So, if there's an issue with signal to that client, you're also going to be able to pick that out of the screen. So very, very helpful, and a great tool to have. So absolutely wonderful. All right, so that's it for today, and have a great day. Take care.